Today's topic, neurohacking, numbness, and tingling with our guest, Dr. James Sheen. Welcome to the Hologram Podcast, sponsored and brought to you by Quantum Neurology Rehabilitation. Every major science publication and cutting-edge physicist is calling our universe a hologram. I'm suggesting that we recognize our human body as a hologram too. I discuss this in more detail in my book, Holographic Healing. This podcast is for introducing life, health, healing concepts based on the holographic principles and how to incorporate these principles into a holographic lifestyle. A hologram means that everything is connected. Our nervous systems are holograms, and we know this to be true because the smallest unit in our body is called a cell. And it's been done where they take the contents of one cell and introduce it into another cell, and it creates a new independent nervous system. And this demonstrates our holographic nature. In a hologram, communication is constant and instantaneous. And this means that to, from, and between each individual layer of the nervous system, there's constant and instantaneous communication between the cells, the muscles, the tissue, the organs, and the bones. On this podcast, we introduce the holographic lifestyle and we examine the concepts of mind, fitness, health, through the filter of the nervous system, through its healing and development. We're interviewing cutting-edge scientists, doctors, and thought leaders to contribute to your holographic lifestyle. I'm your host, Dr. George Gonzalez. I'm a chiropractor and the founder of Quantum Neurology. I'm the creator of the holographic number theory, the author of the Holographic Healing series, and now the creator and host of the Hologram Podcast. This show is for education and entertainment purposes only. It is not intended to examine, treat, diagnose, or cure any illness, injury, infection, or condition. It is to present concepts and possibilities that the listener or viewer can investigate further. These concepts presented by doctors and experts are their personal opinion and are not promises or guarantees of outcome. Please take your health into your own hands, do your own research, and ask the advice of an expert when dealing with your personal health and life issues. Neurohacking, numbness, and tingling. Today, I'll be introducing strategies that are being used by quantum neurology practitioners around the globe to help thousands of people suffering from symptoms of numbness and tingling. Today, our guest is Dr. James Sheen. But first, I want to introduce the subject of numbness and tingling. What is it? Why does our body have this experience? And whether you've fallen asleep on your arm and woke up and your arm being completely numb, or sat cross-legged for too long a period and both your legs went numb, or if you had a stroke and half of your body went numb, or lost sensation after an injury, a disc injury, or a surgery, or some people gone to the dentist and experienced that temporary numbness in their face when they get injected with Novocaine. Regardless of how your body is experiencing numbness and tingling is your nervous system's way of requesting more information. That's a really important concept, and I'm pretty confident you may not have heard that before, so I'm going to say it again. Numbness and tingling is your nervous system's way of requesting more information. Now, the reason I say this is because what's our natural reaction to experiencing numbness and tingling? And we may rub the area. If my arm is numb, I may rub it. I may pinch it. I may slap the area. If it's in Novocaine in my mouth, I may bite it, right? Or smack the area. I might shake my arm or my limb when this is happening. I may squeeze it. These are different things that we do to give information to our nervous system when we have that experience. What we're experiencing with numbness and tingling, only God knows what's truly going on under the skin. But what we've developed in quantum neurology is a model of thought. And this model of thought is based on the observation of how the body reacts to stimulus when it's numb. To understand a stimulus or to understand numbness, we have to introduce the concept of the five senses. And the five senses are the information that is coming out from our external environment into our internal environment. So that would be our seeing, our hearing, our smell, our taste, and our touch, our sensation of touch, which is throughout our entire body. And touch is further broken down into pain, temperature, vibration, light touch, deep touch, pressure, proprioception, and form recognition. Now, when we're dealing with these senses, we're going to be focusing on the sense of touch because that's where we experience numbness and tingling. So if somebody loses the sense of hot and cold, like a diabetic, for example, when they get numbness in their hands and their feet, or those kind of situations, what's happening there is the patient is, or the person is losing all their input into that area, and it becomes numb and tingling. And then our body requests more information, whether we've hit it or tap it or pinch it. It's asking for that information, or it wants warmth, whatever that may be. Our body is requesting that information. Now, we see this in the autism spectrum community, and you've probably heard of these children that bang their heads. And when I first started learning about this, I was like, why would anybody want to bang their head against the wall or against something so often? And it's my opinion that they've experienced a loss of sensation. They've experienced a loss of sensation in their head, and just like we pinch or bite when we are experiencing a sensory loss from various issues, these children, when they have a sudden sensory loss to their head, they start banging it because I feel that they're requesting more information. So these are some of the ideas behind how we look at the nervous system and how we look at sensation. Sensation is an amorphous field, like that scratch on our back that moves around. How is it that we have an itch on our back, and when we scratch it, it moves? It moves because it's not a real thing that our body is experiencing. It's an experience. And our body's experience, it's not a physical action, it's an amorphous field of energy that moves. So we have a waxing and waning of all these layers of sensation, the pain, temperature, vibration, and so on. Today we have Dr. James Sheen. He's a chiropractor from Kearney, Nebraska, and he's an advanced quantum neurology certified practitioner. Dr. James Sheen has taken this work and he's really run with it, and he's used these concepts with patients that were burn victims, people who have had their fingers completely smashed and have grown back. He's, spider bites, and the list goes on and on. He has developed our advanced understanding of the process that we call sensory chords. That's the commingling of 3 or more sensations to achieve a correction. And he's invented concepts that will advance humanity. We'll see how much he's able to share of his new invention and those concepts. But I truly feel that Dr. James Sheen is bringing new conversation to the possibilities of what's possible in our nervous system, in sensory processing, and handling numbness and tingling. Thank you so much, Dr. James, for being with us today. How you doing?
I'm doing great. So it's a cold day in Nebraska. It's a bit chilly, and so we have a great lesson today in the capacity of figuring out what is cold. It was like below when I pulled the pickup in and parked it in the shed, the garage tonight. I've been fortunate to learn Dr. George's technique, the quantum neurology, and allowing that body's ability to take and implement its components of the sensory input. It's 80% of your of your nervous system is a sensory input, and it's broken down into that pain, temperature, vibration, the light touch, the deep touch. And if your body doesn't have those capacities, it's only got a couple choices. One is to fake it. So you're getting kind of a rough estimate. You're not getting what's authentic. It's not accurate. We've seen that especially with some of the Lyme's patients that came in. Their capacity for temperature was monumentally altered. Their resting temperature was dropped. Uniquely, it was more so to the left side of their body than their right, with most of them, which I thought was interesting. we've had some amazing results with some patients that had sensory strokes, which is kind of a rare event in its own right. He had blood pressure that went unchecked and got very high, and there was leakage. And his left side of his body was so numb that when he would take and roll over in his bed, it felt like he went into free fall. He would take and just, jumped out of the plane, and I'm going to go down, and he'd have to reach and grab for the bed and try to figure out where he was at, using the other arm as a sensory input, since the left side had nothing. And I had this idea that you were talking about, the sensory visceral chords, and like, how are we going to do this? I mean, this guy is numb as a post on the left side, from about C3 down on the left side of his body. And all of his muscles, all of his myotomes were working well. But he, the potential there is that you're going to hurt yourself because you're going to grab something hot, or you pull harder than your load sensor would really allow you to do it. So that person is at a great risk for potential damage. And we worked through the protocol, and we picked about 3 of the senses on that given day, and it worked, and it came back, and we followed it up the week after. And I think he was supposed to come back a 3rd time, and I think I did like 2 weeks later or 3 weeks later. I mean, I only worked on it. It was one of those amazing events, and I think sometimes we have to have the hurrah. God gives us a little gift there, saying they're not all going to be this easy. But this one's for you, to tease you, so that you can sit down and say, yeah, it works. It is real, and it happened. And you sat down with that little concept of saying, what is this? What is capable? How are we going to take and be able to restore a person that could not feel a tuning fork from their neck to their toes? And in one fell swoop, it came back, and we got sensation and ability to come back and feel that tuning fork at his neck, at his shoulder, hip, and toes. That's I was jumping up and down. I mean, that was a big day.
That is a big day. And
fun.
If for those people that are suffering with these issues, of course, that's an amazing story and possibility. Again, we're not promising or guaranteeing outcome, but we are presenting strategies that have proven successful with our patient base. And Dr. James Sheen has worked with many, many patients. And, Dr. James Sheen has used different concepts within quantum neurology to introduce sensation and bring awareness back to the nervous system. One of the things he used, Dr. James, is using a tuning fork. And you grab the resonance of the area, and then you make corrections based on that. And it's kind of hard to grasp for somebody who really doesn't understand the patterns that we're talking about. But I just want to exemplify the uniqueness of what you're going for, and how you're stimulating the nervous system to find new ways to achieve a stimulus that restores function.
The other side of that is what you were talking about in general when we were first doing the introduction there. Sometimes I don't think that the receptor sites are working, so we have to reestablish a stimulus. But at some point, I think that the input is getting sent, but somewhere that point of interruption has occurred. And the brilliance of the technique is the ability to take and fine tune and find where that point of interruption has been shut off. It's not that if you put your finger in a vise or a pliers and give it a little squeeze, that it stopped. The receptors never stopped firing the signals. It's just that you're not hearing it.
Right.
So where is that point of interruption that's not allowing that to happen? Is it because there was a severing of an issue across the arm with that finger? Is it the neck? or is it in the CNS? It's not the peripheral nervous system, but is it at the central nervous system that it's not getting the message? There's a lot of some of that filtering. If a person they go into shock. I mean, they something bad happens and they're like, does it hurt? No. Well, how did that happen? Well, how did your body shut that pain off? And on the other side, you have Katinka and the amazing work that she does. She's trying to figure out how to take and get the pain to shut off. And because it won't, they can't get it to filter. I had a patient, we were going through the protocol and his back was sore. And as we were working our way through it, I couldn't get his right knee to stabilize. The knee stayed weak and it just wouldn't settle down. So I'm kind of poking. I'm just kind of feeling what's going on with his knee. And he lets out a yelp and what's wrong? Why is that so sore? Well, I slipped. You didn't tell me that you slipped and fell? Well, no, I slipped with a knife when I was butchering because he's a meat cutter and he stabbed himself in the quad with his fillet knife.
Oops. Not good for business.
It was deer season. They're running late. They're running hard. And he just, stabs himself pretty good. And when I started looking, he had a numb spot that took about a third of the top of his knee and he couldn't feel it. So what he was having problems was his physical manifestation of let's go up and down the steps, let's make the quad, let's bend our knee. It couldn't implement because the skin was damaged and it was so numb from the cut. And I would say that like a tea saucer area was the area that was numb. And the systematic piece by piece capacity and say, okay, we're going to work on light touch on the periphery where the established norm and the integrity was still intact, and then work our way inward. When we got all done, he wound up with about a 50-cent piece right around the site of injury. But his knee hasn't given him any problems. So either to restore that cutaneous event, you would have still continued to have a problem because, if you don't, garbage in equals garbage out. If you don't get the right input, you're not going to get the right output. We got lots of those capacities with the sensory abilities. The patients that, if we look at burns, it's always kind of interesting too, because I think that a person gets burnt and we always think about heat, but you can also freezer burn yourself. So you can burn yourself with cold. I actually had a guy that got a chemical burn, which is kind of a unique thing. You don't see that a whole lot, but we had to treat him as such. And honestly, that started making me thinking about eating jalapenos.
Yeah.
Is it
that?
hot? Are you actually getting hot because you took it of the way that, and I said, is a chemical burn.
Right. It's not a fire burn.
It's not an excess BTUs, but you're still getting I had to treat his chemical burn in the same manner though. We were taking hot packs and cold packs and working our way through the dermatomes to restore that capacity. And I've had that, and after you start seeing that, you start thinking about it, and it makes the world get a little bit more fun. That's what makes practice. I didn't realize that I enjoyed fixing the difficult ones, or seeing if we can jump through more hoops a little bit faster. But how do you get there? How do you get there quickly? The sensory visceral chords have allowed for us to get there a lot faster and a lot quicker, but it's easier for the doctors, but it's a little harder for the patients to understand versus us putting a heating pad or a hot pack on them. I worked on a little boy, and I think it was called cold urticaria, which is fundamentally, if his hands got cold, he'd break out in hives. Any place that got exposed to cold temperatures, he would break out in hives.
Wow.
And his mom's an RN, a nurse, and we were able to work on him. And I think it took like 5 visits. They were in yesterday, and we got to talk about it. And, you know, it was a chilly day. And he goes, oh, yeah, I had a couple little spots, but, you know, and that was 2 years ago. It's a big win for all of those people because they were able to take and continue to do what they wanted to do. It was actually one of the families with the little boy that had gotten his finger in the winch.
Mm-hmm.
And we had to go back and redo some of the work that we do. And he was able to retain his finger when they told him they were going to cut it off twice. And and that's also, he went mountain lion hunting. I think he was 8, maybe 10, 8 years old, went mountain lion hunting. And that was his only complaint, was his finger got cold.
Wow.
And I said, well, that's what we didn't get to finish all the sensory. We didn't do temperature yet.
Amazing. Amazing. So, you know, James, I think for people who are out there who might not be familiar with quantum neurology and may not understand what's going on in the sense of a way that you explain it to the patient. So, first of all, what kind of people do you see with these kind of problems? And what does that look like or present like when you see it? And how do you know, okay, I have a sensory problem, or this numbness and tingling, you know, my body is requesting information like rubbing or light touch or deep touch, but it's not bridging the gap to make a correction. You know, it's the same. It might you feel a little better, but it's not, you know, making that connection to wellness. So how do you explain that to a patient?
There was a lady that was a nurse, and she had a ganglion cyst. And when we started, we were working on it, and we were trying to get that event to occur. And I said, the best way I can explain it to her was that ganglion cyst was like a resistor on a wire, that blocking off that set of nerves. And we started working on the ganglion cyst as a pressure gradient, putting pressure on it and releasing the pressure. And it was like watching a dent, and it went back and forth, and then it finally just kind of went flat like a tire. And she called me the next day, and she came back, and she was very happy that the wrist was doing well, but she was really kind of sore because all of the sensory that had been previously deprived came running back. She had a great amount of, she was sore. I mean, it's like the arm that you laid on and it went to sleep, and then it started to wake up. And we had to go back and kind of help reestablish a baseline. You know,
on that topic, while you're collecting your thoughts, when people have lost sensation, they'll often say, you know, oh my goodness, I don't feel anything. It's numb like a post, and I wish I could feel pain. And people will say that, right, Dr. James? And we often will say, you know, within reason, we want the sensations to come back, but we want it to be in a controlled fashion. And that's why we restore each layer individually to pace your body's ability to handle this stimulus. How often do you see that, Dr. James?
Honestly, I probably do a level of sensory correction on every patient I work on. I mean, it's that prolific. It's that big a deal. I've been working particularly the last couple months on I would call it a very picky portion, but it's I've been working on making sensory corrections on the spinuses, on the vertebrae of areas where the discs have been damaged. Because if that there's a little tiny nerve called a recurrent meningeal nerve that innervates that section. And if that disc isn't getting the right input, then that disc is not going to be able to sustain itself. Is it getting pressure sensors working right? If you want to sit down and, it's a big picture concept, but one of the things that I also use a lot is the element test kit that I had made. And I paired up the elements according to, in my opinion, how your body brings those into and applies those items is also through your senses, meaning hydrogen has a great affinity towards pressure. And if your pressure sensors go down, you're not going to be able to apply nutrition within that family, and on the other side is you can't apply it the way that you should. And on the other hand, if you're missing that nutrition, you're missing that sensory input. It's going to be a deficiency across the board. If I remember correctly, MRIs basically fundamentally make all the hydrogen in your body stand up on end. So if you're deficient or low on hydrogen, you're dehydrated, and there's, what do you know? Everybody has a problem with pressure on their disc, and that's why they got decompression. They're going to create a vacuum. We're going to do all of this stuff, and when it swells, it hurts because it's got too much pressure. So we're always in that balance, trying to reestablish a normal. But if you reestablish the normal and start giving it, then you start growing it correctly. You're not doing it in a limited fashion.
Now, this concept that you're talking about is so huge. It's hard to for people to grasp, because if they're not familiar with the quantum neurology aspects, what you've done is you've associated elements with sensation, and specific groupings of elements are associated with specific sensations, and people's sensitivities to those specific elements are present if they have a loss in those sensations. Am I saying that correctly, Dr. James?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's phenomenal. It's phenomenal, the association that you made there.
And we've been really happy. It's worked well. The patients are happy, and that's what I think lets us kind of go a little bit faster, a little bit quicker. We're pushing you're pushing the envelope a little bit with the holographic model. I mean, how you do one thing then is how you do everything. And so if there's the skin, the largest chunk of your immune system. So what if we'd sit down and say, what do you know, your basophils just can't, they can't read vibration. They're a living entity. What are they missing? They're not getting the right information. And if you can't, they're not doing well with hydrogen. Or what if your mitochondria or energy production and we're missing it? You're not going to make the pressure gradients. It really affects how that body's ability to express itself to its fullest. That's what our goal is. You want that person to game up. We want that person to be able to sit down and do that. And getting to watch like Dr. Pascal's Olympic level athletes and watching their skill sets. They've trained intensely to be able to implement those skill sets. And, especially with even your martial arts training, when you start pushing those envelopes, oh yeah, ninja. And you start pushing those envelopes, and it's ability for your body to do what you want it to do. I think that it's I don't know if it's a fair answer, but I think low aim is our biggest weakness. It's mediocrity. We have so much more capacity built into our system, and unleashing that is a big component.
I completely agree with you. I feel that we have been for whatever reason, whether we never knew the knowledge or the knowledge has been lost, we have underdeveloped our nervous systems throughout our lifetime. And what I'm rediscovering working with all the doctors like yourself and elite athletic performers is how to create concepts of bundling neurological function and performance, and how to get the most out of your nervous system. And that's why I present the holographic concept, getting every cell in the nervous system to participate in an action. And the simple way of understanding that is swimming. When you're swimming, you are forced to have every cell in your body contributing to your forward momentum in that pool. Now, when we go to the gym, it's not necessarily that way. We may pick up one weight and we're doing one arm, or the other arm. We're pushing both arms out, but we're not engaging the entirety of the nervous system. And the people who understand how to do that are the most fit people in the world. And they may not understand or put the concept of calling that holographic exercise or holographic fitness together, but they are incorporating those concepts. So anybody doing rock climbing, aerial yoga, swimming, those are kind of the concepts that engage the entirety of the nervous system, and those people become very fit because of it. So Dr. James, how often do you see somebody who has these kind of issues, and how quickly do you expect to see a shift with somebody?
Well, that's a hard one. It depends upon the condition. Those people that have had chronic infections, the long-term viral, bacterial, fungal infections, there's also an association in the pattern that I see from a sensory standpoint. And when you work with those people, sometimes the path is a little bit slow. You can almost always pick and see daily improvement. Sometimes you have to be reminded that you won. When it's like a daycare, you got 10 kids and they're all crying, and you get 2 of them and you get them out, and all of a sudden you're like, well, they're still crying. I said, well, yeah, but there's 2 that are quiet. The squeaky wheel gets the oil. Well, pretty soon you're down to only the one, and they forget about all of the stuff that you used to have, and we're down to this last one. And we have to go back and celebrate those victories. Those victories were big wins, and they forgot. Why? Because I don't want to go back and revisit that suffering and that time when you were tired and run down, and you're winning, and you're going, and you're going, and you're going, well, why is this still hanging on? I like the idea of, I think a lot of people, if we would look at it with a little different thought process, and like you said, we're working on a person, and we're not making a promise. We're not treating a specific condition, but let's sit down and say, you had to be made a hospitable host. There was a time when you were not a candidate for the infection, and now you are, and it keeps wanting to reappear. If you had a person that is in a wheelchair, and you're looking for a house that might be the next house that you can live in, and you go buy this house, and here's this ramp, and they got the pretty landing, and you're like, ooh, look, it's move-in ready. It has this external appendage that sets down and says it might be ready if you were going to put it and move in, because your wheelchair already has the wide doors, it already has the special cutouts for the sink. You might luck. It's a calling card. So imagine if a person had an infection, and it was a latent infection, it was a chronic infection, and you take an antibiotic and it goes away, and you kill it off. But whoever went back and said, I'm going to take away the ramp, I'm going to take away all of those things. The bacteria is a sentinel event. It doesn't want you to identify that it's there in the first place. So you have to fix those senses that it altered. Your computer had a virus, and there's a reason why we use that word. your brain is your computer, and if the computer got a virus, what got altered? Well, a virus alters your ability for proprioceptive input and pressure gradients. And that's my opinion, but it's proven itself to be rather an effective way, and especially when you put those two senses simultaneously, it gives you a great way of finding the virus, or at least making a correction so that you're no longer altered and a hospitable host.
Now, Dr. James has become famous within the quantum neurology community for helping people who cannot help the most difficult patients that they've had in their office. And Dr. James, you've seen the brown recluse bites, and you've helped people with those. You've helped people with things that we really didn't understand what was going on. Your patient Chris with the crush injury, and Dr. Katinka's patient that came out that was sensitive to electricity. She was so sensitive to electricity that just bringing an electrical instrument close to her body would send her into a seizure. Now, most doctors freak out when they see stuff like this, and they're like, "Oh, that's not my area. We're gonna have to refer you out." Within quantum neurology, we talk to Dr. James Sheen, and if the doctor can't handle it after a conversation, they send the patient to Dr. James. So, could you talk about those kind of special things that they're not common by any mean, even amongst the specialized neurological work that we're doing? So talk to those ideas and what happens there.
Some of it, I think, is we have that capacity. The one in particular, her name was Jess, and she, I got a video sent, and she said, I heard that you got this thing for being able to work with people with electromagnetic frequency sensitivities. And this is what happens. And I'm like, oh, I said, yeah, we can do that. And I was actually trying to shoot her a video to send it to her. And, bless that mom's heart. She was like, Katinka was sitting there going, she's willing to come up to see you. And so, we did. And my component of that event went rather fast, and it's really good. The secondary component was the pain level that she was in. We sent her back to Katinka at the end of the week, and Katinka worked on her, and I think then she had to go to a third person. But when we had talked with the mom, she went a month without having a seizure, and we got the pain levels to drop. It came down and down and down, and an 18-year-old girl just to start having a life back.
Absolutely amazing story, and how it went down. I wasn't available at that time for personal reasons, but I consulted initially, and I said, well, we got the three of us together, and I had to hand it over to you, James, and you did a wonderful job with that case. Well done.
It was a fun day today. I mean, this is just over the course of this week, we've had a lady that was going to get to go travel. So she was going to the North Carolina, and we were able to take and then she wound up having something that was bothering her. And it was nice because we were able to have Dr. Pascal have a work session with her. And actually there was another person that is from Arkansas, and she was having problems. She'd been going to her chiropractor for on and off, and every time she went for a car ride, her left leg would go numb. And using the elements and a sensory correction, we were able to, in about 15 minutes, have a really big win to get that pain in her sciatic to settle down. And she was able to take and hop in the car and drive all the way back. So I think that's 16 hours.
Wow.
It's a long haul, and she did really well, and she still hasn't had any problems. And she goes, I want some more of this. And she's a pastor, And one of the parishioners was like, well, I've had terrible back pain in my legs and all this problem. She goes, I'm ready and willing to come up and maybe have to do this. And I said, well, here's the nice thing. You're only like 2 hours, I think, from Fayetteville where Katinka's at. Having that network of people that can sit down and get up and go and do what needs to be done. It gets really exciting, because when you sit down and you have those abilities, and if I'm a tall guy, it's just how I am. And so Doreen my wife was like, hey, can you change the light bulb? And you reach up and you do it, and it's not a big deal to me. But if you're not tall and you don't have a big ladder, you're not going to change them. It's a skill set that's not that hard for me. And I think it's not a question to me as, I'm trying to think of how to word it. I know where I want to go. The question is how are we going to get there? And giving that vehicle that we have, the toolkit, it's basically those three things: the sensory event, the elements, the motor side. The only other technique I have is the NET for the neuroemotional component in that event. And the nice thing about that is that it runs on the acupuncture meridians. So when I had those people that, I had some people that that was where the hiccup in their nervous system was, and it gave me a vehicle to ride in that own route.
Absolutely phenomenal work. And Dr. James, if somebody's interested in seeing you personally or consulting with you, how would they get a hold of you? And could you mention where you are in the country, please?
Okay. I'm in Kearney, Nebraska. Phone number for the office is area code 308-236-2134.
And do you have a website or an email?
The email is dcsheen, SHEEN @yahoo.com.
Excellent. And this, thank you so much, Dr. James, for being with us today. I really appreciate it. And this broadcast has been brought to you and sponsored by Quantum Neurology. Quantum Neurology is nervous system rehabilitation. And at quantumneurology.com, you can find the practitioner nearest you. Just like Dr. James said, we have a network of doctors around the country and the world that have learned quantum neurology and use these strategies of rehabilitation. Again, it's not a promise or a guarantee, but we have strategies for helping people with these kind of issues. And to find the nearest practitioner near you, go to our website, you enter your zip code or your city, and if there's no practitioner in your immediate area, you have to expand the search radius and look through that. Please look for my book, Holographic Healing, on Amazon. And we are offering a free ebook on lymphatics that I wrote, and you can find the link in the description. Also, we offer doctor training in quantum neurology. We have DVD, live, and online training available. Doctors could get started with our Quantum Neurology Essentials package, and doctors could learn the step-by-step rehabilitation strategies and get certified in quantum neurology. Doctors learn the strategies for restoring muscle strength, structural correction, sensory and cranial nerve integration, and much more. Our upcoming events for the advanced practitioners is Module 4, Sensory Rehabilitation, January 27th and 28th of 2017, and February 16th through 18th, Module 1 and 2. For doctors just getting started with quantum neurology and want to come to a live event, this is the event to come to. February 16th, 17th, and 18th, Module 1 and 2 is where you learn how to integrate the physical aspects of the body and the sensory aspects of the body all in one weekend. So for home care instruction, we have How I Healed My Back in 2 Weeks. That's our first of the series of Quantum Neurology Home Care. And that's where I teach people how to move when they're in pain, to be able to live their life even though they're suffering with back pain, and how to move and stretch and exercise to get out of pain very quickly. So please be sure to visit quantumneurology.com for more information and sign up for our newsletter to get updates. Visit and like Quantum Neurology Rehabilitation on Facebook, and on YouTube, please like and subscribe and ring the bell so that you get further updates. I'd like to thank our guest, Dr. James Sheen, one more time, and I'd like to leave you with a quote from my book: "A rainbow is a holographic projection of light through water. Life is a holographic projection of light through our nervous system." This is the evidence that we live in a holographic environment and that we ourselves are holograms. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you next time. Thank you, Dr. James, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you, Dr. George.
All right. Woohoo. Love to the family.
You bet.